Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ken Morris Jr., and I'll be moderating today's Mayoral Candidates Forum, which is being sponsored by the Paterson Municipal Council. This is being held here at City Hall, the People's House, on the 3rd floor in the council chambers. It is my honor and my privilege to be moderating this session because I believe the city of Paterson has a phenomenal slate of candidates, and we are keenly interested in what they have to say. Just a few opening guidelines, if you allow me. Each candidate will have opening remarks in alphabetical order. Each candidate will present a 3-minute opening statement. Candidates may ask other candidates 2 questions during their allotted time. Candidates will have 2 minutes to ask each question. Candidates will have 3 minutes to respond to each question. Then closing remarks will be in reverse alphabetical order. Candidates will have 2 minutes for their closing remarks. I am joined this afternoon by our Madam Clerk, Ms. Sonia Gordon. Sonia, and I would ask Sonia to introduce her colleagues.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I have joining us today Jacqueline Murray, who's my deputy clerk, who assists me, and Jennifer Sajak, one of the secretaries in my office. They will be assisting me with keeping the time as well. Thank you very much.
So, gentlemen, I am looking forward to a healthy conversation from each of you, as well as the good citizens of Paterson, and we will begin with opening remarks from former councilman and mayoral candidate Aslan Gao.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, former Councilman Kenneth Morris. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, viewers at home. I'm former Councilman Aslan Gao Sr. I was a councilman here for 12 years. I was also the former council president. And I just want to share with you why I'm here today. In all my life that I have been here, during my time as a councilman, during my time as a council president, I haven't seen the things that we see today in our city. While there's always been issues, never to the level that we are today. Specifically, the violence, the crime, the lack of police presence, the lack of police visibility, therefore nothing to deter this criminal activity that's taken place in our city. The filth of our streets, the lack of recreation, the standard that our parks are at today, the quality of life issues in general, the taxes, the sewer fees, and the list goes on and on. That's why I'm here today, and that's why I'm running for mayor of Paterson. You know what you had for the last 4 years. It's up to you to decide through 5 candidates who you want to represent you into the next 4 years. Our present mayor has lined himself up with developers, where developers have come into our city, purchase properties that are run down in poor neighborhoods, knocking down 2 and 3 homes, then putting in 40 and 60 units, overcrowding and congesting our neighborhoods, parking, schools impacted by the amount of kids that are participating. We have finally become a city of the first class, meaning we have 160,000 people or more. We have not yet received the benefit of that designation. But what's going on now? The people that are living in those very neighborhoods are being forced out, not able to afford the rents on the new apartments that are being built. They look like institutions. And what did we get for 4 years? Lack of leadership. In our police department, in our DPW, and in just about every other department. Never in the history of Paterson did any administration ever lose 7 department heads. I could see one, I could see two, maybe moving on, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 department heads, something is wrong with the leadership. That is indicative of what we have been saying about this administration and its leadership. So if there's no leadership at the top, there's no leadership at the bottom. I've been here all my life, born and raised here. When I was here, I don't remember us giving out tax abatements to every single developer that came into the city. But what I did find out now was since 2013, that every single developer in Paterson did get a tax abatement of 20 years minimum. Thank you.
Thank you, Aslan Gal. Next, ladies and gentlemen, for their opening remarks is the current First Ward Councilman and mayoral candidate, Michael Jackson. Mike?
Thank you, former Councilman Morris. That sounded like an introduction to a big stadium arena, which I'm excited to be here. And to the members of the public, I appreciate you all taking the time out, Madam Clerk and staff. Thank you for putting this together. I think it's extremely important that we have an opportunity to present to you concepts and ideas. But the surprising thing, I think for most of the challengers, we're probably going to be singing some of the same music because former Councilman Gal was absolutely correct. Conditions of the city is absolutely deplorable, are absolutely deplorable. And so I'm not going to spend much time doing that. I think Councilman Gal did a phenomenal job with encapsulating the things that are wrong. My name is Michael Jackson. I, as well, am a lifelong resident of the city of Paterson, born in Barnett Hospital, 1971. And I've had the privilege of being a business owner in the city for over 21 years, of a business that has made it through turbulent times in this community and is still thriving, is still here, despite some of the misnomers. We're here operating in this city that is struggling through poor leadership. And that's part of the reason why I decided to step forward and run for public office, because in the past, when asked, I said I would never seek public office. But as I'm watching these poor decisions being made on a daily basis and watch individuals capture these seats and totally disregard the public and change their positions once they have it, I think there's a need for transparency, there is a need for integrity, and I believe through my tenure, I will speak to you tonight, not with regard of what my vision is or what I think things should be, but I'll talk to you about my track record, because I think that's what distinguishes me from everyone else. When you're talking about the large-scale housing deals that have plagued our city for the past 20 plus years, these are the deals that have crippled us and put us in a position where Paterson has become a target for overdevelopment. And what I like to categorize it as a good friend continues to advocate about, is the privatization of public dollars. Paterson and our residents have become targets and bait for large-scale development deals. And we need someone who is concerned solely about the public's best interests, but who also understands the level of business that needs to happen in our community. We made poor decisions year after year, and I've been sitting here consistently in indifference of those poor decisions. I have many examples that I don't think I have to give to you tonight, but one of the things that we need to do is be able to rebuild our own community from within. I believe I render that type of capacity. I believe I bring something totally different to the table than any other candidates. And my name is Mike Jackson. I'm 4A on your ballot.
Thank you, Councilman Jackson. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we will hear from the current Third Ward Councilman and mayoral candidate, Councilman Alex Mendez. Councilman?
Thank you, Councilman Morris. Good afternoon, fellow Patersonian. First of all, let me thank Madam Clerk and the organizer of this great forum. My name is Alex Mendez, and I'm a candidate for mayor on the line 5A. And I'm here because it's time to bring back the Steel City. It's time to save our community. This city gave me everything I have. I remember those times when I came to the city of Paterson for the first time with nothing on my hand. This city gave me a beautiful family. I started investing in real estate when I came to Paterson. My 3 beautiful children born and raised in this city. My 21 years old, Alexander Mendez, who is about to finish his 4-year college. My daughter, Maya Mendez, who is ready to go with a full ride to Howard University in Washington, D.C. So we will have a doctor in the city of Paterson. And I just want to take this time to tell to my daughter that I'm very proud of you. And my little one, who is 14 and is getting into high school. Paterson is a beautiful city, full of men and women that really want to do the right thing for Paterson, the ones who have the opportunity to raise their family here and to be able to call Paterson home. But unfortunately, in the last 4 years, Paterson, we're losing our city because of the amount of crime that we have in the city of Paterson. We have the highest crime rate in the history of the city of Paterson. Shooting in every corner. It's not one area specifically. The garbage in our community, the lack of services, the roads that are destroyed citywide. Our taxpayers are struggling, and we have so many Pattersonians that they choosing to move out of this city because they can't afford the high taxes, and they don't get anything back in return for the taxes that they pay. They're struggling with the sewer. Enough is enough. It's time to bring this city back. This city needs a new leadership. This city needs a mayor who's gonna bring a group of men and women with the ability, the capacity, and the knowledge to do the right thing for Paterson, to start enforcing the law that we have in the book, and to get things done for Paterson the right way. Enough is enough of selling this city, because this is what this administration have done. Selling the city to his friends, and we have people suffering every day because of the condition of our city, and they see no hope on this administration. I'm Alex Mendez, 5A, to be your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mendez. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we have the current incumbent mayor seeking his 2nd term, Mayor Andre Saya.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. First, I want to take the time out to extend my warmest wishes to my Muslim constituents who are celebrating the Eid holiday. I had an opportunity to visit multiple mosques today, and I wanted to make sure that they knew that I support them on this very important holiday in the Muslim calendar. Paterson is the only home I've ever known. It's where my mother raised me. It's where my wife Farhana and I are raising our 3 children, Sophia, Kayla, and Aiden. It's where I've had the honor to serve as your mayor for the last 4 years. But unfortunately, the last 2 years, we've had to deal with the pandemic. But we didn't wallow in self-pity, nor did we seek anyone's sympathy. We took action. As a matter of fact, it was about 2 years ago today that I emerged from my basement after testing positive from COVID-19, but still leading from the front. And our pandemic response has been recognized nationally, especially with our contact tracing program. And I thank our Division of Health employees for being on the front line and putting themselves in harm's way. I also want to acknowledge the fact that we were able to partner with St. Joseph's Health. We're also able to partner with houses of worship like St. John's Cathedral and Calvary Baptist Church, where thousands of Paterson residents were vaccinated, to the point where our health commissioner, our state health commissioner, Judy Persicilli, came and praised Paterson for being a leader in the vaccination efforts in the state of New Jersey. And we understand that not only we're struggling with the virus, we're struggling with violence as well, like many other cities across this country. And our police department deserves credit. Last year, they confiscated 219 guns. The year prior, 200 guns. This weekend alone, 3 more illegal firearms confiscated, bringing our total to over 30 guns, on track for another 200. And we have police officers that are in our academy that are ready to hit the streets in June, and we'll have another academy in July. One thing I'm very proud of the fact is that, Councilman Morris, when we served together, you sat on my right-hand side, we had an abandoned properties ordinance to create an inventory. And when I took office 4 years ago, there was 1,200 abandoned properties. Now there are 400 abandoned properties. And currently, we have 4 affordable housing projects underway that will equate to 500 affordable housing units for Paterson residents. And yes, there's been $800 million in investment in our city, to the point where you have companies like Gromex, the largest food distributor in the East Coast, relocating from Passaic to Paterson, which will help with our tax base. Also, an Amazon-like warehouse coming to Getty Avenue, which was a property that was being underutilized. And so I think it's important to note that throughout this crisis, I've been tested and have proven to be trusted. And that's the leadership we still need in the city of Paterson to finally put this pandemic behind us and continue to position Paterson for progress.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we have the current 5th Ward Councilman and mayoral candidate, Councilman Luis Velez. Councilman?
Thank you, Councilman Honorable Ken Morris Jr. We really miss you on this side. First of all, you started saying and welcome the city of Paterson, the residents out there, to the people's house through Channel 7732. A day like today, my mother gave birth to this young man, and I'm happy that she's watching from Puerto Rico. But we are here, and everyone knows the condition of the city. I don't want to sound like a broken record every time they speak or they say something. Is acknowledging the condition of the city. You are a resident of the Paterson. You know what's going on in our city. You know what's going on, the streets, the condition you all know. In this past 4 years almost, you know, as a resident, because you live here, you sleep here, you work here. You know the condition of our city. I don't have to remind you, but I'm here to know that you are important for me, because the same way the Councilman Morris says, welcome to the people's house, my slogan in my campaign is the people's time. As a longtime resident in the city of Paterson and councilman in this ward, 5th Ward, I always represent the residents of Paterson the right way, making sure that every decision that I do from this side benefit you and your family. So May 10, my ballot is 3A. Damas y caballeros, soy su concejal Luis Vélez de la ciudad de Paterson. Nací tal día como hoy en Puerto Rico. Mi mamá me está viendo allá también. Bendiciones, mami. A los residentes sabe la condición de nuestra ciudad, sabe lo que está pasando. No hay que recordárselo como un disco rayado. Sabemos la condición. Estoy corriendo para ser tu alcalde, para traer las soluciones donde tú y tu familia se sientan seguras y se sientan bien en nuestra ciudad, y orgulloso de que esta ciudad pueda echar hacia adelante. Vote 3A por Luis Vélez, el tiempo del pueblo.
Thank you, Councilman. Gentlemen, I'd like to applaud you on your professionalism thus far in adhering to the time restraints. I think that deserves recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, I also would like to mention that we do have early voting in the city of Paterson for the municipal elections on May 10th. It's in-person early voting on voting machines. Please be advised that in-person early voting for the 2022 City of Paterson municipal election is for all registered voters and will be conducted on the following locations: Paterson Fire Department, 300 McBride Avenue in Paterson, in the Islamic Center of Passaic County on 152 Durham Avenue in Paterson. Early voting will start on Friday, May 6th, and end on Sunday, May 8th. Friday and Saturday, the times will be from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and on Sunday, the times will be from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. As another reminder, in the order in which the opening statements were given, we have former Councilman Aslan Gal for the people. He's on ballot position 2A. We have current Councilman Michael Jackson, vote or die. Ballot position 4A. Current Councilman Alex Mendez, Let's change for our city together. Ballot position 5A. We also have current Mayor Andre Sayer, the leader we still need. Ballot position 1A. And finally, current Councilman Luis Velez, the people's time, Tiempo del Pueblo, ballot position 3A. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the questions by the candidates, beginning with former Councilman Aslan Gao. Councilman, you can ask your first question of candidate Mike Jackson.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. I'd like to start with our mayor, if that's okay. Can I divert
It's
my
fine.
question?
No, you can go in the order you choose.
Thank you. All right, so this question is to our mayor. Mayor, you're constantly boasting about your success when it comes to COVID and what you've done and how even you had COVID. And I remember when the news came out that you had COVID, you were perfectly fine. But then you talk about how you had to go through this really tough period, as a victim of COVID. But the headlines say, Paterson mayor reverses decision that scaled back COVID-19 testing. Another headline says, amid surge in COVID-19 cases, Saya cuts back Paterson's testing program. A third one says, why didn't Paterson set up a coronavirus testing site for the residents? So I ask you today, can you explain why you didn't open up a testing site after you were strongly advised by your health department? You're taking all the credit talking about the success of this program, but it's really the health department. You never applauded your director and his people, and you didn't talk about their success. You're just the mayor. The mayor appoints the qualified people for these positions. But again, you dropped the ball on many occasions here, and the failure of you not doing it when you were advised to possibly cost the lives of a lot of people in Paterson. So if you would be so kind to explain why you didn't do it earlier.
It's unfortunate you're wrong on everything, and I'll point it out as far as my condition is concerned. Perfectly fine. I had pneumonia on my left lung, and I had other symptoms as well. So you didn't do your homework. Maybe it's because, quite frankly, you don't care. And as far as testing is concerned, we partnered with the county early on and then opened up multiple testing sites at private doctors' offices throughout the city, making testing ubiquitous. You want to cite the Paterson Times, a disreputable periodical. I'll cite the New York Times that praised Paterson with our fire department's response early on during the pandemic and getting enough personal protection equipment for not only our firefighters, but our police officers as well. Enough so that we could also provide PPE to St. Joseph's Health. And I'll also point out that our contact tracing team at the Division of Health, which I praised as well, and we held a banquet for them at the Brownstones to let them know how much they are appreciated. They were featured on national television. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, very reputable media outlets. But I don't think you would know that because you weren't here. You've readily admitted that you live in West Milford. You can't have a mayor that doesn't live in the city of Paterson. In fact, I think it's insulting. I've been here all my life, and throughout this last 2 years, haven't taken a day off to lead this city through this once-in-a-century crisis. While you were up county in the comforts of West Milford, I was on the front line leading this city that I was elected to serve people here in Paterson. And like I stated before, maybe you weren't paying attention, the state health commissioner, Judy Persicilli, came to Paterson just recently. In fact, it was a few months ago, to praise Paterson for our pandemic response, particularly with the vaccination efforts and the fact that we reached out to many community organizations, faith-based, whether it was the mosques or the churches or nonprofit organizations. We mobilized this city in an unprecedented time. And I'm proud to say that as a result, we were able to save lives. Thank you.
Councilman Gal,
If I may, how much time do we have to make our statement and ask our question, and how much time does,
as a reminder, each candidate has 2 minutes to ask their questions and 3 minutes in which to respond to the question that was asked.
all right, so now what are we going to do? Individually ask of each?
You can ask 2 questions of each of the candidates. So you've asked 1 question of the mayor at this time. You have another question you could ask the mayor, or you can move on to another candidate at this time.
Will I be able to come back at some time to ask, or we're just going to have to ask all our questions now?
No, you will ask all your questions now. So if you want to have a follow-up question for the mayor, you could do it at this point, or you can move on to another candidate and come back. If you so.
And also, as part of our questioning, can we make it a statement as a rebuttal?
You can use your 2 minutes however you choose.
Thank you so much. So the mayor wants to sit here this evening and talk about, once again, the success, and he wants to discredit one of the media outlets that he's not popular with, because the media outlet is telling the truth. Now, he can talk about what the New York Times said and what CNN said and all the other ones said. Mayor, I did do my homework. You've been nothing but a failure, and you've done nothing but lie to the community. And then you actually sit here again and you try to humble yourself and act like you're sincere. But you aren't sincere, and you haven't been sincere since you've been in this position. So you can sit there and you can give all the answers you like with your smiles and try to appease the community, but it's not working anymore. As far as me living in West Milford, that was a sneaky thing that you tried to do to discredit where I lived. You hired one of your developer friends to come out and follow me. Just because I wasn't at my residence for 2 weeks doesn't mean I live in another community. Now, I could have been anywhere at that time. You would not have been successful then, you're not successful now. And at the end of the day, you have lined yourself up with these developers, you have sold the community out to the developers. You haven't done anything to address the crime or the quality of life in the city of Paterson. And if you talk about our great men and the police and the other departments, you have failed them. You don't let them do their job. Their hands are tied. You're telling them what to do, what not to do. You're a civilian, you're the chief executive of this city, but you're not the boss. The chief of police who runs the day-to-day operation is who runs the police department. You failed at your level, you have failed at his level, and you have failed at every level. My next question will be to Councilman Velez.
Councilman Morris, he's supposed to ask a question within that, correct?
The 2 minutes, you could put the question in the form of a statement or a question.
So I may respond to that, correct?
When you
When
get
you
a
have
chance
your
to ask
time.
your question, you can respond.
No, he's posing a statement.
No.
His statement was
Mr. Mayor.
loaded with
Right. And
falsehoods.
You will have an opportunity to sit where former Councilman Gal is currently sitting, and you can pose your question as a question or a statement. You can use your 2 minutes.
Actually,
as you choose.
the guidelines say they have 2 minutes to ask a question. It doesn't say anything about statements. That's what it says here.
It
He didn't
says
bother
that,
to read. Unfortunately, he didn't read it. It says it right here. Ask a question for 2 minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Doesn't say make a statement.
Mr. Mayor, I cannot evaluate how somebody forms their question.
All right, so, okay, that's how you form this question. I'm going to respond then. There you go. Thank
But
you.
you can respond once
I can
you're
respond
there.
now, because he formed this, you said you can't control how somebody forms
Right,
a
no,
question.
you-
So I'm going to respond
Right,
to
you
what he
have
said.
3 minutes to
There you
respond,
go,
yes.
thank you.
He
That's
did
all.
not.
Thank you.
Councilman-
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you very much.
Councilman Morris.
So,
Councilman Morris, so no.
one
no,
moment,
no,
one
no, no,
moment,
no.
one
He said
moment.
he had any way to form the 2 minutes, and
You
it says
each get
ask a
2
question.
Once again, let me make myself clear. You each get 2 minutes to ask a question. You could ask 2
There you go.
questions within that 2 minutes. You can form that question
you
any
go.
way you choose, right? The candidate then has 3 minutes to respond.
That's right.
Right? So the mayor responded to your first question that you asked. You formed your second question in a form of a statement. He still gets 3 minutes to
There you go.
respond to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't have a problem with that.
So, there you go. Thank you. Again, you're wrong in your statements. You didn't do your homework. But you keep talking about your time as council president, and you're saying there's failed leadership now. Your time as council president was a failure because you presided over a time where we laid off 125 police officers. That's fact. And we've been reeling ever since. You talk about how you're tough on crime. not tough on crime. You voted to lay off 125 police officers. You know, there's an expression that says, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And you did get going. You moved to West Milford. You admitted it. But nevertheless, my administration has hired over 121 police officers since we took office. That's more than any administration in the last decade has hired. So we're trying to make up for the mess that you made when you were council president. And let me remind everybody about when you were council president as well. You also voted on increasing taxes by 29%. I'm sure a lot of people lost their homes back then as well, and still trying to recover from your failed leadership. Whereas last year, in 2021, fact, we kept the municipal tax levy flat. Can't control what the school district did. And that's why people saw an increase in their tax bills. But because of our former council president, I'll point to also the fact that after he was council president, the next year he ran for re-election, and he lost. That was in 2012. And then in 2014, he ran again and lost. In 2016, again, ran and lost. 2018, ran and lost. You see why the voters keep rejecting you, because of your failed leadership as council president, laying off 125 police officers, which we could least afford, and then raising taxes by 29%. That's the definition of failed leadership.
Former Councilman Gow, you can now ask a question of any other candidate.
Sure. My next question will be to Councilman Velez. It's a shame that we don't have a better forum where we can debate each other. Well, what a shame, Mayor. People are really seeing what a liar you have become, and I will disprove everything you say. You should be ashamed of yourself. Councilman Velez, you said earlier, and you know, a lot of people say, we don't want to talk about what's going on because the people know what's going on. The truth is, a lot of people don't know what's going on. So you say to the community that they know the condition of the state of the city. So you, as a councilman, what have you done about it?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate you in your, because you're Muslim, so let me congratulate you in your festivity today. What I have done as a councilman, so once, I don't want to go what the mayor said, that proved that you don't live in Paterson. I could reverse that question, what you have done in your tenure here as a councilman. I recall when you was a councilman and I was sitting in the other side, how you mistreated the public. I recall that. But as a councilman, let me tell you what I have done. I have created and amended ordinance in the city of Paterson to address the quality of life. I have voted for the community to give the resources to DPW, the police department, and any other departments in the city of Paterson. That's now, well, minister is another thing, but I have done more than you have done as a councilman in the city of Paterson. And one thing I got to tell you, when I say in the beginning of my statement that the residents of Paterson knows what they're going through, probably you don't know because you only walk back and forth, but they live and sleep in the city of Paterson. Let's be realistic, councilman. And I gotta say it with respect. What you have done, because when you go like this, you have to make sure.
You can ask me that when it's your turn. Ask me when I can't answer that now.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Ask me when it's your turn.
thank you.
Answer the question.
Former Councilman Gow.
What have you done?
I would ask that you do not interrupt them when they respond. You will have an opportunity. You do have a follow-up question for Councilman Velez. You will have an opportunity at that time.
Sure.
Please continue, Councilman.
So he asked me what I have done. So I had amended ordinance to address the illegals vehicles picking up passengers to protect those that pay their fair share for licenses in the city of Paterson, illegal taxi cabs. What I have done as a councilman, I put the ordinance in place to put the cannabis in the same way that do not smoke cannabis in public, like treated like drinking in public. And on. I could mention a lot of things that I have done as a councilman. Not only that, you see a visible councilman out there. You're always going to see me. Probably you haven't traveled to the Fifth Ward. You probably don't see me. Well, you don't live in Paterson. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I say the people knows is because he's a sound broken record.
Councilman Gao, you have an opportunity for a follow-up question to Councilman Velez, or you can move on to another candidate.
Sure. I wish the councilman would have answered the question, but that's okay. It's one of the unfortunate wards that are totally misrepresented. As Councilman Velez, just not too long ago, the municipal council voted against approving the licenses for the dispensaries that the city of Paterson, under our present mayor, wants to put 5 dispensaries throughout our city. We already have 1 dispensary which was designated for medicinal purposes. As we know, it's called Rise. It's off of the Route 20 corridor down there, which is in an industrial zone, which is where it should be. But now the city wants to put 5 more of them throughout the entire city. And the municipal council, which even though voted no, the mayor at the last minute vetoed that and overrode the municipal council. And when the mayor was talking about the use of marijuana, he tried to convince the public that it was for medicinal purposes. But today it has been legalized. It's for recreational purposes. And you have not, as a governing body, implemented one single piece of legislation that would benefit the citizens of the city, protect our kids and our coffers. What is your answer to that?
Once again, I guess he didn't listen. I just stated, and every council member that's here could testify that the creator of the ordinance in banning the cannabis, totally the 5 licenses was me. I was the creator. And the council supported 7-2. The mayor vetoed it. I didn't sit back. I created the ordinance that cannabis should be treated the same way that smoking in public. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't done nothing. So we have taken action. So first of all, I guess you have been missing a lot of pieces about the state legislation regarding cannabis, but the state give us the rules and also the authority to regulate. And that's what we're doing. I regulated the way that I just mentioned it, and at the same time, we just voted to implement tax on the sale that they have. So, I don't know, man. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes it's not legislation that they want to bring or government or administration ideas. It looks personal. So, I always say, when you go like this, make sure that you're doing something because you got 4 fingers pointing at you.
Former Councilman Gao, you now have the opportunity to ask another candidate question.
Yeah, I have no other questions for the other candidates, but I will say there is nothing to protect the citizens or the children of Paterson from the legislation that you're saying that you created. There is no such legislation at this time while you're working on it, or it might be a working legislation, and the term is legislation, Councilman. Thank you.
I'll stay there. Let me respond to you. Don't walk away like you do to the people out there. Can I respond to that?
Thank you, Councilman. We're going to actually move on. And as I said earlier, that if you don't have a question to ask the candidate, I did ask the local papers for a series of questions, which I will then ask the remaining candidates who have not been asked a question, which will be Councilman Mike Jackson and Councilman Alex Mendez. Councilman Jackson, this question is from Jay from the Paterson Times. Paterson homeless population increased significantly over the past years. In 2019, Paterson had 80 unsheltered homeless persons. In 2020, Paterson had 150 unsheltered homeless persons, a whopping 87% increase. Could you provide an outline of how you intend to tackle the city's homeless crisis?
Very good. Thank you, Councilman. So the unfortunate reality here is that most of the numbers that impact the community negatively have increased. If you look at violent crimes over the past several years, those numbers have increased. If you look at the homeless population, those numbers have increased. The only numbers that have seen a substantial increase in the bottom lines that have been increased over the past 4 years are those of large-scale developers. So the way in which I would plan to tackle most of these problems that are plaguing our community is very simple, and that's putting the community first. Outlining plans that impact the community first and not designating resources and things that should be laid out for the community's benefit and giving them the way to large-scale developers. A perfect example of that is when this current administration elected to give close to $1 million away of first-time homeownership dollars away to a developer that's leaving the city with close to $15 million in developers fees. This is just another example of putting the developers first and not considering the conditions of our community. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Councilman Jackson. Councilwoman Mendez, this question is from Joe Melanconico. You lost the last mayoral election by 4,000 votes. What have you done since then to make enough people change their minds for you to win this time?
Thank you so very much for your question, Councilman. Obviously, I left the City Council in 2018 after I lost the election and finished second in the race. Since then, the community came to me a number of times to request me to come back to the council and to run again for this position. That was the reason why I ran successfully in May. I won the election, even though we have a mayor, a corrupted mayor, that all he's doing is targeting people and try to get people in trouble. Since then, I won the election fair and square. In June, I didn't have the opportunity to sit my seat. They did a runover election, which is something that has been done in the city of Paterson. In November, I won the election again in November as a councilman. They took me to court. I won the election in court, and I'm sitting here just because of the support of the people. When I decide to run for mayor, in a timely record, I collect all the petition needed because of the support that I have for the community. I've been very active. I'm a hands-on the job type of person. And I'll expect that you will see a mayor that will do what Frank Gray did. Hands on the job, putting law and order in the city of Paterson, and making sure that everybody deserve and receive the services that they deserve, and the services that our taxpayer are paying for and not receiving because of the lack of leadership and the ineptitude and the corrupted mayor that we have in the city.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Jackson, you may ask your questions at this time.
So just for a point of clarity, Councilman Morris, so are these sub-questions that's asked by members of the press only being asked of certain people, or are you just scaling them through?
No, they're only going to be asked if a candidate chooses not to ask a question of a candidate. Councilman Gao, if you recall, chose not to ask you a question, and he chose not to ask Councilman Mendez a question. At that point, I will ask a question that's posed by the press. If you choose to ask every candidate a question, I will not ask them a question posed by the press.
Okay, so for example, if one of the candidates is asked by each of us, then they would not be asked a question from the media.
Correct.
Okay.
If I understood your question correctly.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're clear.
But you may ask your questions at this time.
Very good. So, to the public, normally I normally don't write these things down because I'm very much so abreast.
Councilman Jackson, just stop the time. I do want you to realize once you start speaking, the timer starts.
Meaning just now, right? Not when I was asking you the question before?
No, just now.
Sure, yes. But again,
so you have 2 minutes in which to make
understood,
your comment.
understood.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman.
So to the public, I normally don't write these down, but I wanted to make sure I don't miss any points. And I want to start, and I'll start with the current mayor as well, because I think the conditions of our community have been depended greatly on his success and as a result of his failure. So, Mr. Mayor, you say you have deep concerns for the residents of Paterson. In your opening statement, I've heard you speak of all the deals you outlined for the benefit of large companies and developers. But you gave away a $1 million grant for first-time homeownership funding in the city to another developer that walked away with a large-scale developer's fee of close to $15 million. Can you simply outline for us, during your tenure, how many residents have you provided an opportunity for first-time homeowners? And part two of that question, since all of your actions have caused a spike in rental rates in our community in excess of over $2,000 for an average apartment rental, why have you chosen to turn your back on the residents who are now left in despair under these conditions? You can start by answering the first part of the question, which asks directly, how many residents have you allowed to become a first-time homeowner during your tenure?
Actually, Councilman, you should know this. Maybe you haven't done your homework. We established a financial empowerment center here in the city of Paterson for that purpose. We're the only city in the state of New Jersey that has a financial empowerment center in your ward, the Center City Mall, in the office of the United Way. And we've had over 500 Paterson residents already visit and 1,000 sessions. And in order to become a first-time home buyer, we have to help individuals repair their credit score, reduce their debt, which is happening now, and we're putting them on a path to becoming first-time home buyers. And quite frankly, I want to point out that there's a Paterson resident who's looking to transform the North Side Library. Akbar McIntyre, I wholeheartedly support this endeavor. You have not in the past, and this would transform a derelict property into a community center in your ward. And I stated earlier, there are 4 affordable housing projects underway, and I'll outline them if you'd like. One of them is in partnership with St. Joseph's Health, and that's to address homelessness, because we found that there were homeless individuals seeking shelter at the emergency room at the hospital. And so we need permanent housing for these individuals, and that's why we're partnering as a city with St. Joseph's Health. Then in your ward, grandparents raising grandchildren, 75 affordable housing units for senior citizens. Hinchliffe Stadium, another project that you voted against. Senior citizen housing for 75, affordable housing for 75 senior citizens. And then 261 affordable housing units at the Riverside Village. So we're doing everything we can, leveraging every resource available through the Financial Empowerment Center, which you should help promote because it'll promote home ownership, and also stop voting against projects like Hinchliffe Stadium and the affordable housing component that will help senior citizens.
Councilman, you can ask a follow-up question of the mayor or move on to another candidate.
Sure. As I begin, I want to point out that, Mr. Mayor, you failed again to answer the question. The question was very simple. How many first-time homeowners did you create? So that number is 0. We understand that. And relative to turning your back on the high rental rates, you failed to answer that question yet again. But this next question, as you have created the habit of turning your backs on the residents, I sadly watched you turn your back on people, the De Jesus family the other day, while you were there cutting a ribbon for the park, which you're very talented at, by the way. I give you credit for that. You have your own personal scissors that you had created to cut these ribbons. But you turned your back on the De Jesus family when they were there asking about your responsibility to their loved one. You also turned your back while barricading City Hall on the Lowry family. So recently, a professional coroner had determined that the trauma caused the death of Jameek Lowry, in which you repeatedly talked about bath salt and so on and so forth. My question then again goes back to you. Why do you continuously turn your back on those members of our community that are in need? and particularly the De Jesus family that come here week after week seeking for your compassion, and the Jameek Lowry family that still has not received an answer from you and your administration during your term.
Thank you. Again, you're wrong with turning my back on families. I met with the De Jesus family. In fact, what you're referring to at Luke Costello Park last week didn't turn my back on them. They were asking questions, and I said the lead agency is the Heldon Police Department. That was on camera. Anyone can see it. And they said they have some answers. Reach out to Captain George Guzman, who I've been in constant contact with as well, and he provides me with periodic updates. Later that day, the Heldon Police Department released information about the last sighting of Mr. De Jesus. I was pointing them in the right direction because Heldon, just to remind you, is the lead agency. Our police department is partnering with them. Today, I actually got a text message from a member of the De Jesus family. I told them that we're still doing whatever we can to partner with the Paterson Police Department to find his brother. As far as Jameek Lowry is concerned, as you know, a medical examiner determined that it was caused by the bath salts. But it's currently under litigation. And so let the process play out, because you know all about litigation. You've been criminally charged with voter fraud.
Councilman Jackson, you can ask a question of another candidate at this time.
Very good. This is rather entertaining. I'm enjoying this. So, yet again, the mayor refused to answer the question. I'll move over to Councilman Gao. In spite of many of our differences, we've often aligned on some of the same ideals, and I think one is which of this current mayor and his refusal to be transparent and honest with the community. So I'm looking forward to see if the De Jesus family will be here again this Tuesday, since he's saying that he has not turned their back on them. As a professional, former law enforcement professional, and understanding some of the details, because I don't think we all have all of the details. The mayor states that Heldon is the lead agency, despite the fact that the incident took place in Paterson. This gentleman never left the city of Paterson. He was in the possession of Paterson officers, and he was left at a Paterson facility, be it Paterson Park, and now he has not been found. From your professional perspective, I'm just curious, the response the mayor has given, do you feel it was adequate? And if you happen to be the one chosen or who wins this current mayor, this mayor's election, would you respond the same way?
Thank you for the question, Councilman. And absolutely not, I would not respond the same way. Even though this gentleman is a resident of Heldon and he is missing, the primary agency that was involved here was Paterson, New Jersey. Paterson Police Department should be the first lead investigator on this matter. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what I have seen. I saw the mayor in the video and how he handled that family. He's not compassionate. He has no passion. I don't know, God forbid, if that was anybody else, maybe one of his family members, it would have been handled differently. But he did not give them the respect or the compassion that they deserve. They have not been here not once, not twice, not three. I don't know how many times. It's over 80 plus days this individual was in the custody of a police agency, and at some point he disappears. Attorney General's office, FBI, should have been the primary lead in this matter. That's not happening here. The body cameras are to protect both the public and the police. We're quick to show our videos of the police when they're protecting themselves, but in this matter that didn't happen. And I'm not pointing the fingers, but the truth of the matter is the facts are the facts. I don't like what I'm seeing at any level. And I saw the video again when they were at Costello Park, and I saw how the mayor just kept going, go to the Heldon Police Department, putting his hands out like this, brushing them off. Very disrespectful, very unprofessional. Somebody needs to be more responsible, more accountable, but that's not happening under this circumstance. This could have been any one of us, our children, our family members, and this is how we're going to be treated in Paterson, New Jersey? Absolutely wrong.
Councilman Jackson, you now have an opportunity to ask a question of another candidate.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. So thank you. At least one thing that I can depend and trust, Councilman Gow, is that you could at least be forthcoming. Since the mayor again failed to answer the question, one of the questions that you asked with regard to his failure in producing a testing scenario for the city, you were absolutely correct. In fact, as the chairman of Public Health Commission, the Public Board of Health, I instituted the directive to make sure the council sat as a Board of Health. And that was one of the first things we pushed for. And the mayor allowed or gave way to the county to take the services up to the county, where many of our Paterson residents were not able to be tested. So I want to confirm that question that you asked. But further, there was over close to $20+ million that has been squandered on a property on Pennsylvania Avenue that was now most recently approved by the council to be designated as our new site for communications. That money was totally squandered. There was kitchen equipment that was there that we purchased that now has somehow disappeared. And you're talking about millions of dollars, and we just designated more money through the CDBG grant. And now I'm understanding that there's another allowance that this administration is planning to turn that building over to another developer. I want you to weigh in on this gross misuse of funds, and if you had the opportunity to sit in the mayor's seat, would you have made the same decision in allowing for these funds to be squandered and this facility to sit dormant for all this time?
What I could say is, first, I would not allow that to happen. That's number one. This city has been neglected. The residents have been neglected. The developers have been favored. And I want to answer the question this way. While I may not be as informed as to all the detail on that matter, what I will say is that this has put the mayor in another setting altogether. What's happening here is he's been favoring these developers for the longest time. Now, there's a developer that has put himself in the middle of what's going on in the city of Paterson, acting like he's the one that's calling the shots. I remember at one of the council meetings when I talked about what's happening in the state of the city as far as developers, this developer actually reached out to me, contacted me, and made it about him. He made it very personal, and I never mentioned this individual's name. And no other developers have come out since talking about what I'm saying, or or I shouldn't say the things that I'm saying. I do my homework, and I do my homework very well. And they went as far as hiring a private investigator to follow me, and in the end, in 3.5 hours in a court, the judge, he just dismissed the case. It was absolutely absurd that they would make comments and allegations the way they did with no proof other than what they thought was proof, and for the mayor to make the comments that he made. But this is what's been happening here. He's been campaigning for the last 4 years. He has been campaigning for the last 4 years, but not in the city of Paterson and not on his record of success. What he's been doing is he's been campaigning in hopes that he will be anointed to a congressional seat in our very near future, and then in turn hope that he will pick who he wants to see succeed the city. So that's what's going on here. It has nothing to do with the developers and what the things that they want to do. It has to do with everything that the mayor wants to do to get himself to where he needs to be. Now, this has been going on for 4 years, and then now in 4 years, we're talking about the things that he has done. The truth is, he hasn't done nothing in 4 years. And he wanted to throw in the fact that under my tenure as a council president, that we lost 125 police officers. And the truth is, I was the one that said to the administration prior to that, that if you put these guys on, there is no money, and they would be laid off 1 year later. And that's exactly what happened. And then under the administration, I left in 12. So I wasn't there after that. This guy got elected, and he didn't do anything in his power to protect the safety of our citizens. Now he's talking about he's the one that put on more cops than anybody in the last 30 years, and it's all, again, not true. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Jackson. You have an opportunity now to ask a question of either Councilman Mendez or Councilman Velez.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. So, Councilman Mendez, I think that, again, you and I can align on many things, and we agree on many things. We both agree that the city is in deplorable condition. We both agree that this is the worst condition the city's ever been in. We both agree that these record-breaking crime rates are unacceptable. We both agree that this mayor is a failure. Part of my concern with you, Councilman Mendez, is the discernment and whether or not you have the capacity to understand and not be drawn into the same conditions that this current mayor is. An example of that is your approval and vote in favor of, which we talked about in previous debates, of the project that took place on Fifth Avenue, where we gave away 17 acres of land for free, where developers benefit greatly by a large-scale $20+ million developer's fee, where we're creating subpar conditions. Recently, I did a live where I did a comparison on a project that Elon Musk is creating in Vegas for $41 million, more than half, a state-of-the-art facility, a transportation underground tunnel. Do you still feel that the $105 million spent at Fifth Avenue is justified? And would you continue to support projects such as this when you know large-scale developers are going to make a handsome developer's fee and renters are going to be stuck there paying astronomical rents for subpar living conditions? No lights in bedrooms, cheap materials utilized for the construction project, and outsourcing the construction jobs to outside people, and no one from Paterson being able to capitalize off of this large expenditure.
Thank you for your question, Councilman Jackson. I will, if you have the opportunity to support a project, I will do it again. My votes will be yes, because I understand that we are in need of affordable housing in the community. We all know that our Paterson residents are struggling for the high rent that we have in the city of Paterson. The only problem that we have is that we as a legislator, the only power that we have is our vote. And once we vote, it's in the hands of the administration, it's in the hands of the Paterson Housing Authority. But we have such a lack of leadership on this mayor, and it's such a corrupted mayor that I was hoping that on that project we'll have Paterson residents working on that project. And that's what I hope. When you approve a project, you're expecting to have Patersonian getting the benefit of those construction. I'm all for. We have to create jobs. We have to be responsible. And it come to the conclusion that there's no one Paterson resident working on that site, which is it's just incredible. And the only reason why this is happening is because we have a mayor that the only thing he cares about, try to use this position to jump into another position, not caring about Paterson, not caring about the condition of our city, and he quite honestly doesn't care about the job creation. He lied left and right about, for example, the stadium. We're spending almost $100 million there. How many jobs did he create? 2 jobs? It's a shame the way he conducting himself in that position. It's a shame the way he been representing the city, and that's the reason why he already have an F on his administration, and the Paterson resident will take him out of office this May 10. That's guaranteed. Something that I'm planning to do, Councilman Jackson, to stop that is that I will make sure that once we get into office, I'll make sure that any project that go above $1.3 million, 30 to 40% of the job creation have to be for Paterson residents. We have to find a way to create jobs. We have to give the opportunity to our Paterson residents to be able to put food on the table. And what we have now is that we have people that they cannot afford to pay those $2,000 in those 2-bedroom apartments that we have citywide. Thank you for your question, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Jackson, you now have an opportunity to ask a question, a follow-up question to Councilman Mendez, or move on to Councilman Velez.
Very good. Thank you, Councilman. So, agreeing with you, Councilman Mendez, and acknowledging the fact that, you know, there was a great deal of trust that was placed in the hands of this administration. And you consistently trusted this administration to do it not once, not twice, but multiple times, as the mayor acknowledged. I did not support the vote for Hinchcliffe Stadium because it did not outline specifically guidelines for employment, guidelines for opportunities for our residents. In fact, only given 180 days for our public schools to be able to utilize it. So, with that understanding, and you as a legislator, which you had extensive experience, in which most of these projects that have outlined and allowed and made these allowances for outside developers to benefit from. As a resident, myself, why should myself and all of the residents of the city of Paterson trust that you have the ability to make sure that, that we hold these situations accountable when you clearly have failed in approving all of those items before? You supported the Hinchcliffe Stadium project, which only put money in developers' hands, only created 3 jobs, which you acknowledge. Then again, the Fifth Avenue project, there's multiple projects. Why should we trust that you'll have the capacity to do it as the mayor when you failed as a council person and holding this administration accountable? Because that is our job as legislators. I was the only one who held the line and voted against these projects and made an attempt to hold this council, this mayor, accountable. How can we trust that you'll have the ability to do it as mayor and you did not do it as a councilman?
Thank you for your question, Councilman Jackson. For the viewers, let me just remind Councilman Jackson and correct you that I left the city council in 2018. Unfortunately, I wasn't here when the Hinchcliffe Stadium took part on the vote. Unfortunately, because what this mayor have done is a crime. The first thing that I will check, if you have the opportunity to be sitting here, it will be what is in it for Paterson. If we're spending $100 million, almost $100 million, what are we getting to our Paterson resident? Which is zero. Because this mayor, he just doesn't care. Unfortunately, I wasn't here. I left in 2018. I was happy being out in the public, working with my not-for-profits, the Alex Mendez Foundation, and that's what happened. I had the opportunity to come back, Councilman Jackson, when I saw what this mayor did with the sewer utility, that he hit the taxpayer with this increase on the sewer, and so many Pattersonians was losing even their property because we have a lot of Paterson residents that they live on a fixed income. I came back to that podium, and I recommend the administration, you could look at the video, please go back, fix it. He admitted that he made a mistake. He admitted that he was wrong, and he never took the time, the initiative to fix it. And that's the reason why I have proof to say that he doesn't care about Paterson residents. He doesn't care about you that have a house in Paterson, lose your property because you live on a fixed income, and he doesn't fight for you. He never fought for when the Board of Education put 12% on the taxes, but at the same time, Steve Fulop, the mayor of Jersey City, he went in front of the board and he stopped that lack of leadership on this administration. He never been out there fighting for the people, and he never corrected. And the council took the decision to find another solution for it because he never had the ability and the leadership to say, that was wrong, we make a mistake, we got to fix it. And that's the way he's been conducting himself since he got into office in the last 4 years, failing big time in terms of the condition of the city. Just drive around the city, look at the road. Now because it's election time, he rushing, fixing and paving some of the roads, some of the main roads, because he wants people to trust him when he failed and he lied to Paterson residents for the last 4 years. The only thing he been paying attention in the last 4 years are those special interests that are putting money on his pocket.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Jackson, you now have an opportunity to ask a question of Councilman Velez.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. Although I totally agree, Councilman Mendez, he has been a failure. As council members, it is our job and our task to hold him accountable. And I clearly acknowledge that we failed as a council. And as a lone voice in opposition, I'm disappointed that you did support those things and you didn't answer the question completely there. And with that being said, por mi hermano, concejal Luis Vélez, me gusta trabajar contigo. I like working with you, and I think you have the spirit. But I also have to ask you the similar question. I forget what year it was. I believe our illustrious Councilman Morris was on the council with us at this time. There was a vote in particularly that had to do with the first ward, where what I like to affectionately call the trailer park came into existence. You acknowledge now that it was a total mishap and you did wrong, but then I tried my best frantically to convince you not to support this. And what stands out to me is the words beautify. You kept touting on how this trailer was going to beautify the first ward. Situations like this, where we spend $1.4 million on something only worth $200,000, we consistently make these same mistakes. And you as well have supported the Hinchcliffe Stadium project. You as well supported the Fifth Avenue project. These are gross failures by this administration. These are missed opportunities for our residents. How can we, me as a resident and my family, trust that you have the capacity to make sound decisions on behalf of our community when your thoughts is that a trailer beautifies our community?
So, Councilman, so let me acknowledge first, he acknowledged that he liked to work with me and that I have the spirit of goodwill, in other words, right? And I had the good intention. As your councilman in the Fifth Ward, we entertain what they present us. And then you balance what's the need of the community. In that time, the need was there. The youth needed a place to be in place. And the administration decided to bring forward the project of the trailer house or the house or whatever name they want to put it. But it's a structure that is well being used on it. They've been using it. So when they present us the plan, well, we want to make sure that it's not spent in the wrong way. The community was asking what is before was there and what you see after. So when you vote, you need to know that the administration responsibility is the procurement, the bid process, and we are here to make sure that the community fit in whatever the administration move forward. I'm not a roadblocker. I try to move forward as a legislator. As your councilman, I have doing it. As your mayor, I want to make sure that the mistake that other mayors have done, I don't do it. So that's why I want to make sure that the input of the community is first. So that's probably you didn't have the out of state, technology place in that section of the ward because probably the community was not involved. But as a mayor, I will bring everybody on deck and make sure that the project looks like you out there. As I always say, it's the people time. Thank you, Councilman.
Councilman Jackson, you can ask a final question of Councilman Velez.
Thank you. So, Councilman, as we look at the history of our community, there's never been a mayor who came off the street to capture the mayor's seat outside of Madam Warren. Most of the mayors who have held a seat, it's been a progressive situation. So, meaning they've been a council person and then they've been a mayor. Now I hear many of us saying that I'll do a better job as a mayor as I've done as a councilman. So, acknowledging that you did not have the discernment to see through that plan, even despite my efforts in bringing it to light, which I've done consistently. One of my concerns is, and I do understand it, so I want to give you, the benefit of the doubt, because we all can sometimes drink the Kool-Aid. But of all the council members, you stood side by side with this mayor more than anyone else. You've rallied to support a lot of his efforts that have been a detriment to our community. You partook in many ribbon cuttings and press conferences. Now we have a sharp change in your disposition and your perspective of him. How can I, as a resident of the city, trust the fact that you're just not in seek of the seat? And through your failure in acknowledging his failures, his early failures, how can we trust that you'll do the right thing and you have the capacity to understanding, the capacity and understanding to do the right thing when we all acknowledge, this mayor has failed our community greatly, not just now in the last 3 months, but his entire term?
Well, let me respond that with the bottom of my heart. I supported this mayor in 2018 because I believe in that time the two individuals running, or 3 or 4, didn't have the experience to run a city. First of all, it was in a deep situation nationwide regarding the corrupt mayor that was stepped down by the system, of course, system, because he abused taxpayer money. So we already was in a situation. So I supported Andre, yes, of course. I recall on July 1st in 2018, this mayor over here, Andre Saya, sat there and addressed the whole council that he needed to work with us. So my responsibility as a legislator and your responsibility as a legislator is to work with the administration, not in your personal interest, in the community agenda, making sure the community is there. But I stopped. Why? Because one thing I noticed that have to be delivered. You could be doing press conference, but the results was different. If you say that you put in equipment in the police department and curbing crime in certain area, but the news hits that we are breaking record crime, I cannot support it. So I have a better idea, I have a better plan, I have better communication with the community, and I could build that relation with the council and stop the nonsense that if they don't win, I'm gonna make your life miserable as mayor. As your mayor, if you don't win, I will have a retreat with you, look into your ideas, look into your plans, and make a completion on it. We gotta work together. You haven't worked with them and some of the council members, but I have faith in you that you're gonna work with me as your next mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have Councilman Alex Mendez ask his series of questions of the candidates. Councilman, as a reminder, you have 2 minutes to ask a series of 2 questions of each candidate.
Thank you, Councilman. Let me start with the first question to Mayor Andre Saya. As we all know, since the mayor came into office, he started discriminating against black and brown employees, knowing that we're gonna end up into paying millions of dollars in lawsuit because the way he's working. And in some cases, if you don't agree with his agenda, he tried to eliminate you. And we have many examples of that. But this is an example that caught my attention where he has one of his employees, a female, that was way qualified with the same qualification as another employee, and he chose to pay less to that employee who is a African American from Paterson, born and raised in Paterson. Some of the director, they're in court suing the city because of the way he's conducting himself. And we can continue on and on looking at the way he's discriminating against black and brown employees. The question that I have for you, Mayor, knowing that your action will end up into losing money from the taxpayer because of the lawsuit that we're getting in the city, why are you continue discriminating against black and brown employees, the same employees that you hire, and after that, when they don't agree with you, with your agenda, you go after them and try to eliminate that? When are you going to stop that?
You totally just proved you don't know what you're talking about. As far as the employee you're referring to, there was a standard as far as degrees are concerned. We paid based on the level of degree that that individual has. Unfortunately, that individual didn't have a master's degree, had a bachelor's degree. And the individual that succeeded her has a master's degree and now pursuing a law degree. So just to put it in scholastic terms, you need to do your homework. But I want to use the remainder of my time to address a lot of the lies that Mr. Mendez has been spewing. You have zero credibility to talk about crime and corruption. You are out of touch with reality. You are actually contributing to the crime rate. Let me remind you and everyone watching that you, in June of 2020, were criminally charged by the Attorney General, Rabir Graywall, who called you a criminal. He called you a criminal. And then in February, a grand jury of your peers indicted you. And Mr. Mendez, if you want me to remind you, I'll read into the record. Election fraud, 2nd degree. Fraud in casting a mail-in vote, 3rd degree. You've been charged with that as well. Unauthorized possession of ballots, 3rd degree. Tampering with public records or information, 3rd degree. Falsifying or tampering with records, 4th degree. Then you were also charged with false registration or transfer, 3rd degree. And another charge, attempted false registration or transfer, 3rd degree. Who are you to talk about corruption? You are corrupt. It's been proven. The Attorney General called you a criminal. In your opening statement, you said, I want to bring back the Silk City. No, you want to bring back Joey Torres. You wear his endorsement as a badge of honor. You are dishonorable. And I want to enlighten the public. It's not just Joey Torres who's going to be pulling his strings because you're a puppet. Joe Ferriero, the disgraced Bergen County chairman who went to jail, contributes to his campaign and is a top advisor in his campaign. You are not fit for office. Everything about you is corrupt. You can't even take out your garbage or recycling right. You got cited for that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the epitome of corruption. You have been caught red-handed. And quite frankly, God forbid, if you're ever elected, you'll be in court this summer, or you'll take a plea, because you've already admitted guilt. You asked for pretrial intervention, and you were rejected. That is akin to admission of guilt. So even before you can become mayor, you've already proven that you are corrupt.
Councilman Mendez, you can ask a follow-up question to the mayor, or you can move on to another candidate.
Sure, thank you. I have the second question to Councilman Sayre, and it's
I'm not a councilman.
I mentioned in the beginning.
You got that wrong too.
I mentioned at the beginning, you're under my time. I mentioned at the beginning that he has his way to go after people when you don't agree with him. And let me just mention this to the public. He was the cheerleader of this whole campaign when that happened. I just want to share this with my Paterson residents. When that happened in May, I sit down with my family, and my daughter asked me 2 questions. I received just 2 options to plead. And my daughter told me, Daddy, if you know that you're innocent and you take a deal, what is the example that you're living for the society? And since then, I promised myself and the resident of the city of Paterson that I will fight to the end because I know that I'm innocent. Even the law and the attorney general know that I'm innocent. Unfortunately, Councilman Sayre or Mayor Sayre, he been trying to use his friends to go after me because he running scared. He cannot run on his record, and he's afraid. And he's been a cheerleader on this. I lost the election fair and square in May. They make me run in June because he campaigned harder than my opponent, knowing and thinking that I was losing, that I was about to lose. I won the election in November. I went to court again, and I won again. And I'm here, and I'm ready to beat him in May 10. So, with that being said, talking about corruption, this mayor is the most corrupted mayor in the entire history of the city of Paterson. He's been selling this city to his friend, to developer, and I've been challenging him for over a year to release the amount of people that donated money into One Paterson, an organization that he said that he has no connection with. And that organization was the one that collecting all the money for this corrupted mayor. He's been selling the city to his friend, and I've been challenging him to release the name of those people that donated money. He's a liar and a corrupted mayor. He chose somebody else to come after me, taking the clerk to court, humiliating the clerk in front of the court, and to try to take me out. So my question with this is, when you gonna release the name of the people that donated money to your account in One Paterson?
Councilman Mendez, my apologies,
make
but
it.
your time has expired.
You
Mayor,
couldn't even get
you
your
have an
question in.
opportunity
So I'm going to respond to a
Councilman?
statement. No, you didn't get your question in. Follow the guide. You can't follow the rules with anything. All you do is break the law. Let me point out one thing, and I'm going to have a Councilman Gao moment. I'm going to give you a nod. I'm issuing the statement. I'm going to point out something that viewers can go to. Go to the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission. You have to tell people, you want to talk about money, you have to tell people where you're getting your money, how you're spending your money. He had an account, Alex Mendez for Paterson. He has not updated that account since December of 2020. I invite you to that website, New Jersey Law Enforcement Election Commission. He hasn't updated that. He violated the law. He's going to be fined. You're going to be fined, and you know you're going to be fined again. And then what he does is he creates another account, Alex Mendez for mayor, but all of his paraphernalia this time around says Alex paid for by Alex Mendez for Paterson. So he has a phantom account that he's using, and he's duping voters once again. He's using Alex Mendez for Paterson to pay for whatever's used for Alex Mendez for mayor, and he's not even taking account of that. He can't file basic guidelines. He couldn't even get his question in. He's a lawbreaker. How can anyone trust you? And quite frankly, let's think about this. He had a stolen vehicle in his possession. He files a police report in Paterson for something he alleged happened in New York, in Brooklyn. He says he went to Brooklyn with $25,000 in cash. Who carries $25,000 in cash? You have issues paying your mortgage. You have $25,000 in cash? And you meet with people you don't even know and don't even ask for a receipt. And they say they'll send you an email. Then you provide on the police report 2 names of 2 different individuals with the same phone number. 2 different individuals with the same phone number. I think the cover-up exceeds the crime. And then ironically, his former aide and close confidant over a week ago gets stopped with a car with fictitious plates from Texas, just like the ones you had on the Range Rover. And quite frankly, that Range Rover was in his driveway and impounded. It was taken. It was a stolen vehicle. You are the epitome of corruption, whether it's a stolen vehicle, stolen votes with voter fraud, not being able to put out your recycling garbage and being cited and not paying the fine, taking that to court. You spend too much time in court, by the way. And then a Range Rover. You paid $25,000 in cash. You've been cited in the past for bouncing over 35 checks. Who can trust him with anything, let alone a budget? So while you were too busy 2 years ago stealing ballots, I was out here leading this city trying to save lives. You don't have the capacity to be the mayor. You don't have the capacity to serve an elected office. You are unfit for office.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Mendez, you now have an opportunity to ask a question of any of the other candidates.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. I would like to ask the next question to Councilman Gao, knowing that it's very important that the Patersonian understand that it's okay that the mayor, he tried to come after me with all his BSs just because he cannot run on his record, just because he cannot sit there and talk about one improvement that he have done in the entire city of Paterson. All we have is the highest crime rate in the history of the city of Paterson. Garbage are everywhere. The roads are destroyed, and we could keep on and on and on. Thank God, God already blessed me more than I deserve. My house is in order. I'm not losing my property. Well, Mayor, you never have a full-time job. All you have is part-time job because your political connection. I do real estate. I make my own money, and just for the point of clarity, the SUV, that was a victim of a scam. I used the chamber to talk about that. I put it up there. The DMV Commission, they investigating that in collaboration with the New York Police, and they're going after those criminals, those people, because it's happening, and it's happening here. So that's the only explanation for that. Councilman Gao, the question that I have for you is, knowing that this mayor has been abusing the taxpayer dollars with the emergency line, using for the last 4 years the emergency line to promote his position as a candidate for mayor, knowing that this is abusing the taxpayer dollars, and all the mayor been in jail just because of that. What is your take on that? What is your opinion of this mayor abusing taxpayer dollars?
Thank you for the question, Councilman. And before we start, I just want to let the mayor know that was not a Councilman Gao moment. That was an Andre Saya moment that you had.
Yes.
You had a meltdown. Don't look at me and make it look like I had something to do with that. So that's on you, Mayor. So what I'll say to you is today that there's an article, once again, came out in the Paterson Times, and it talks about our mayor and the abuse in our information, emergency information that we're able to put out through text messaging. And in that text messaging, there's 30,000 residents that our mayor can reach. Now, if I had done that, I can only imagine what they would be saying and what they would be doing, and saying that I've broken these laws, and you know, there has to be some kind of accountability. And the problem with this is that we have a governor who has endorsed them, a congressional level endorsement, senatorial, and a host of other people that all are connected in one way or another. And therefore, there just doesn't seem to be a way to create the accountability that we want, or at least warrant an investigation. It's abusive. I don't have those numbers. I don't think you have those numbers. I had to spend a lot of money to get numbers, and most of them were not valid. So I will say it right here and right now. There's no doubt that the mayor has abused the office of mayor, and he took that to his advantage. Now, if that's not true, I challenge the mayor now to give the rest of the candidates that very list of those numbers, so we can reach the constituents. And I'm sure that he's not going to go for that, but I would only hope that if he was an honorable mayor and he was a transparent mayor, that he would offer us the same opportunity. But that's not going to happen. He's breaking all the ELAC laws, pay to play. We have this organization called One Paterson. I've never heard of such a thing where they don't have to disclose where the monies come from. He's got the support of them. He's getting contributions from the developers. So if you want to talk about abuse in office, nobody has been less transparent and more abusive than this mayor, Councilman.
Thank you for your question, Councilman. I have another question, Councilman Gao, for you. We all here in the community, the crying of the community, of the resident of the city of Paterson, and knowing that this mayor has been selling the city from the day one, and paying attention to his special interests, because he always talk about integrity, when he cannot show the people that putting money on his account, the people that he's been selling the city. He's been getting endorsement everywhere because he knows that he's running scared. He doesn't have the support of the people. He doesn't have the support of the residents of the city of Paterson. But the concern that many people have is that if he stays in office, he's gonna continue selling the city to those developers. And the city is going to continue with a high crime, road destroyed, garbage in our community. The question that I have for you is what will you do different to stop this mayor action?
Well, I'm not sure about stopping the mayor's action at present, but I am sure of, God willing, this community elects me as their mayor, that there will be police presence. I have a specially designed program that I've been talking about for the last 22 plus years that has just fell on deaf ears. I don't understand for the life of me why somebody doesn't run with my plan to make Paterson safe. We can put 100 walking police officers throughout the city through the Class 2 program that the Jersey Shore and Shore people, residents, benefit from. They cannot afford to hire thousands of police officers because it's a seasonal issue. And that benefit allows the local municipalities to hire them. Newark has them, Jersey City has them. But what they did was at one point, they went with a lower version of that. And they hired police officers that were called Class 1 officer that had no police power other than the ability to write ticket and direct some traffic. They had no enforcement authority whatsoever. So we have an opportunity to at least have the presence and visibility. That's a major factor in deterring crime. In addition to hiring police officers, which he's claiming he's put on more police officers than anybody in 30 years, which is the furthest thing from the truth. When he came in, he knew there was 125 police officers that were laid off. He didn't do anything to restore that. And right now, they've tied the hands of our police officers. They don't want them pursuing these renegade motorcycles that are on our street or these dirt bikes that are all, from mountain areas. Most of them are unregistered, uninsured, and we just allow the crime to be more and more rampant. So I don't understand for the life of me now, we're down to 10 days, and the last month and a half, he's talking about recruiting police officers before election, repairing your roads, more recreation, hiring a private company to do the work of a company that is being paid through UEZ funds. We have a Department of Public Works. Where's the leadership there? The streets are filthy beyond imagination, and interestingly, this company that was hired, and we're happy to hire local people, because it's the first time in the 4 years that he's been here, he's hired anybody local to do anything. But he's talking about some specific corridors. You have to go to the streets of Paterson. You have to go into the neighborhoods of Paterson. And we have to educate the people in Paterson, because the litter is not falling out of the sky. So it's a two-way street. We need to clean it up, but we need to start educating our people on being cleaner and more responsible when it comes to litter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman, for your answer.
Councilman Mendez, you now have an opportunity to ask a question of Councilman Jackson or Councilman Velez.
Sure. The next question will be for Councilman Jackson. Councilman Jackson, knowing the way this mayor has been conducting himself, going after people when they don't follow his agenda, retaliating against the employee, the record is there. He lied when he said, talk about the qualification of that female African-American Patersonian, that he paid less money to it in front of an outsider. He chose somebody from out of town. We have directors that have been suing the city because he retaliated against them because they don't follow his agenda, and they're not in line with his corruption administration, and we all know that. I was a victim, so they gave me a ticket for recycling, and I was the only person in the entire city of Paterson with 23,000 residents in a whole week that received one ticket for recycling, and that's what he's been doing. He retaliated against people and just attacking people that doesn't follow his agenda. But there's one question that I have for you. You've been talking about the residency required that we have in place. This mayor, he never followed that. He chose outside instead of Paterson resident. He never take in consideration a Patersonian where they have an open position. And you've been very vocal on that. What is your take on that?
Thank you, Councilman Mendez. Respectfully, first of all, I'm totally disappointed to hear that you, as an elected official, received a summons for recycling. I would like to know whether or not you received any warnings, because a normal process would be residents would receive warnings prior to. Further, it's even more disappointing to find out that you received the summons, which obviously shows the vindictive, retaliatory practices of the mayor when his friends, the furniture store, had over $10,000 in tickets dismissed. when his friend, the Art Factory owner, had over 150 tickets dismissed. When he recently even brought in his supporters on a state level to hold an event at the Art Factory, considering they still do not have a legal certificate of occupancy to hold events there. They still don't have a liquor license there. The mayor held an event there where there was alcohol being served, and there's never been a one-day ABC liquor license applied for this facility. So I'm disappointed to hear that. Now, relative to his practice, his unfair practice of not hiring within the guidelines of the residency policy, the mayor just previously talked about how he did not mistreat this employee because he has a practice of hiring people who have certain levels of degrees and experience. The state wrote a letter to the municipality where it was addressed to the mayor and the former BA that outlined that the former zoning officer, his name escapes me now, who was not a resident of the city of Paterson, who did not have a college degree, who did not have certifications or qualifications. The state outlined in a letter to the city that the mayor held from us for over a year that he was not qualified to hold the position. Yet he passed a Paterson resident over who not only had a college degree, but a licensed architect, had a college degree in architectural design, licensed planner, certified zoning officer. He allowed this gentleman to be passed over for a non-resident because he was not African American. So you are absolutely right when it comes to the practices and the treatment of this mayor, and his track record speaks for itself. It is absolutely hideous. He talks about people having qualifications. His current BA has never ran any industry company, let alone a city with over a $280 million budget. He's put many people in place who lack the experience. His economic development director is another example of that, so you are correct.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Mendez, you can ask a follow-up question to Councilman Jackson or move on to Councilman Velez.
Sure. Councilman Jackson, the next question that I have from you is that, knowing that, as I mentioned before, this corrupted mayor, his tactic is to follow up and go after people when he feel threat, he go after people, and he find a way to use his connection to get people in trouble. We all know that. So, and the Patersonian knows that. A month ago, he took me to court, and the case just recently finished when he took the clerk department to court, his own department, putting the clerk on a very difficult position, humiliating the clerk with the letter that came back of her performance, and knowing that he's spending taxpayer dollars and that the clerk, when he challenged my petition, the clerk went and recounted the petition. They spent taxpayer dollars overtime. She came back reaffirming my certification as a candidate, that he was not satisfied with that. He took me to the Superior Court. We went to the Superior Court. He lost again, the same way he was going to lose in May 10. And then he appealed. He went to the appellate division because he was not satisfied, because he believed that he's above everybody with his corrupted friends. So he doesn't care about the taxpayer because he spent thousands of dollars with that law firm and taxpayer dollars. At the same time, he's selling the city to all those developers with tax abatement on 20 and 30 years. What do you would like to say to the taxpayer about his action?
So, Councilman Mendez, once again, you're correct, and I'm extremely disappointed at the mayor's lack of ability to be transparent and forthcoming. His actions have been totally against the public's best interest. In fact, the only thing that he's actually been successful in the past 4 years is, one, fooling the public to think he has the public's best interest in mind. Two, convince the public through his relationships there was going to be a benefit. In fact, the only persons that have been able to benefit from his relationships are the people that he has relationships with. And it shows through the continued support from the governor's office, the Office of Attorney General, and now the senator's office, the U.S. senator's office. But what's disappointing is the mayor fails to utilize his relationships for a benefit to the public. Paterson residents are feeling the grunt right now. The conditions in our community are at its worst, and we all can acknowledge that. The crime rate is astronomical. The cleanliness of the city is horrible. He has absolutely no control over keeping these things in line. In fact, the mayor just outlined on how he has been more successful than any other mayor in bringing forward 150 so plus cops. So I ask members of the public, if that is the case, and this mayor has been successful with hiring these additional officers, then why are we getting so many complaints about response time? Why is the department still struggling with answering to the public's best concerns? So, to encapsulate that question, Councilman, you're absolutely correct. And what it shows is the mayor has a total lack of concern for Paterson residents. His only concern is to move on past the city of Paterson, and he's shown that in his actions. We also had a historic spot, because the mayor's a history buff, and he's touted himself from being one of the cheerleaders, our best cheerleaders for what we have in Great Falls. But yet, when Libby's failed to pay rent for a number of years, and through his administration, and because of one of the council members to find that out, instead of the mayor making sure that this site is going to be something that the public will benefit from, that will capture the activity of the falls, he has chosen to steal the sign that Libby's once had posted and has been photographed in his living room. So you're right, he does feel as if he's bigger than the law. He feels as if he can do things against the public's best interest, and he's doing things totally for his own benefit, and it's extremely disappointing. So I appreciate everyone's efforts.
Councilman Mendez, you now have an opportunity to ask a question of Councilman Velez.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. I have no more question for now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take this corrupted mayor out of the seat on May 10. Thank you.
Councilman Velez, given that Councilman Mendez does not have a question for you, I will pose a question from a member of the press. This question is from Joe Malaconico. You have said Paterson needs a new police chief. Who do you think the new chief should be and why?
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Councilman Mendez, Councilman Jackson, and Mr. Gao to exposing what the people already know about failure administration. But I'm here to tell the people that they got hope in Velez. Every time I hear something back and forth, I just see how the media is looking at us and the world. What are we going to do with the crime? What are we going to do with the cleanliness of the city? With the opioid situation? With the education? What are we offering the seniors? What are we offering to the new business that we want to bring into Paterson? What are we offering to the residents out there that are struggling, that they don't have a job, the youth that don't have a job right now? So that's what I'm offering you as your next mayor. Thinking about the community, creating jobs for our youth. If they cannot go to a recreation center because they don't want to go, they could go to a job after school. Now, the question is, and I want to thank Mr. Malaconico about that question. You know, the forces, our military, in other words, I call it like that, is the police. They protect us. As your mayor, I want to make sure that that police chief is well identified first in the rank and file. Second, they understand the community that he's coming to work, a diverse community, and to start building relation with the community, making sure that the community fit in the public safety agenda. A chief is my right hand, because if I want to attack crime, I need to have that communication with them. So, Paterson, you're gonna have a chief that understand the community and making sure that the police department feel comfortable that they have a leader that they can work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Mayor, it is now your opportunity to ask the candidates a series of questions.
Thank you, Councilman Morrison. Mr. Moderator, it's become painfully obvious to me that 3 candidates seem to be in cahoots. It's almost like they rehearsed this morning. So I'm not going to pose any questions to them, because all they're going to do is lie. So my question, or questions, are for Councilman Luis Velez. We heard right here Alex Mendez stating that he was a victim of fraud relative to the Range Rover, the stolen Range Rover that was impounded by law enforcement from his driveway. He filed a police report in Paterson when the alleged crime took place in New York. He said he purchased it with $25,000 in cash from individuals he claims he did not know, and didn't even get a receipt, and was told he'd receive an email later. My question to you, Councilman Velez, do you believe his story that he was a victim of fraud?
Once again, Paterson, I'm not here to judge my fellow councilmen or to whatever happens in their private life. They're accountable and responsible of what they say. If they get caught with the pens down, they had to come up clear to the community. But what I want to make sure that his experience don't fall into Paterson. I want to make sure the police is out there making sure that people don't go through auto theft, that people don't go in carjacking, that people feel safe in our city, making sure that they could come to our city without any crime incident. The other day, in the 6th Ward, one of my volunteers got carjacked. Her vehicle was, they removed her from her car, and it was a bad incident. Unfortunately, nothing bigger happened. But my concern is, he's responsible, accountable of his words. I always says, the paper will write whatever they, holds whatever they write. So ladies and gentlemen, he's responsible, he's an adult. He knows what to do, he knows what to say, his stories. So he's responsible on that. I want to make sure that when I become the next mayor, you could sit down with me and make sure we bring public safety and try to not keep people, electing people that cannot bring sunset to the community.
Thank you, Councilman. My next question for Councilman Velez, Mr. Moderator. When I was a 6th Ward councilman, one of my proudest moments was when we built a playground in an underserved area at School 25. Now, you and I have collaborated on a new playground at Roberto Clemente Park. In fact, I'm very proud of this particular playground because it is the first of its kind to accommodate children with autism. So it's an inclusive playground in Paterson, so we can help children who are on the spectrum, because we've had parents come to our public portion asking for something to accommodate children with autism. When I was a councilman, we made sure that there was constant programming at the playground at School 25. What are your plans for programming, particularly for children with autism, at the inclusive playground at Roberto Clemente Park?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, everybody knows, and you know, that I'm the godfather of a great organization called Yo Soy Así, an organization that dedicates themselves to autistic kids. As your councilman, and you, the mayor, we visit Roberto Clemente Park, and I draft with the individuals how I want to see my park, but you came short. You came short. A park that costs $110,000, and it's not what I wanted here. I want a better park. Basketball court, I want to be new sprinkler system, but you only gave me that little playground for those kids that are needed. But first of all, before making sure our parks are beautified, we need to put safety in our parks. That's why I created, and you commend me for that, the pilot program with the constables inside the park, and they was in the summer on 2020 in our parks, and the kids was going to the park safe and the parents feel comfortable. So the resources of recreation with funding are available under your administration, on my administration, and everybody's administration, is spend it the right way. But at the same time, recreation has to come with safety. I have to make sure that my residents feel safe in my park. Yes, of course, I'm gonna dedicate 150% to those our needs, especially if they are here in Paterson. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That concludes my line of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Therefore, I will pose questions to the remaining candidates that was provided by the local press, and I will begin with Councilman Mendez. Councilman, this question comes from Jay from the Paterson Times. Councilman Mendez, you have spoken out against the hotspot business curfew ordinance. Police have said the ordinance has significantly reduced non-fatal shootings in hotspot areas. Do you plan to pursue its repeal if elected mayor?
Thank you for your question, Councilman Morris. But the reality in terms of crime is that, let me just say this before I answer your question. We all remember former police Troy Oswald, who it was a great chief in our police department. So this mayor, he removed our chief that was doing an outstanding job to bring one of his own. When in reality, this is not about race. It's about who is ready to do the job. But that's the way that he's been conducting himself all his life, not taking in consideration what is good for Paterson, but only what is good for him and what is good for his pocket. After that, crime is being ramping. There's crime and shooting all over the place. Quite honestly, if you look at the statistic on those high spots, they're not as effective anymore. They're not, because they're shooting every day in a broad day life. Around school 21, around school 2018, they're shooting and every time and everywhere in the city of Paterson. If you look at the ordinance, you're talking about the curfew up to 12 to midnight for those commercial businesses. We need a better plan. And what I'm proposing is boots on the ground in those areas, not only on the hotspot area, in the entire city of Paterson. We have shooting happening at Eastside Park. We have shooting happening in all different areas. Crime is not only located in the first and fourth ward, it's all over the city because of the lack of leadership of this mayor, because the action that he's been taking with the police department, because of his retaliation against the staff, and that's what we have right now in the city. I have Troy Oswald, our former chief, working side by side with me, putting the most aggressive plan in terms of public safety. He's my advice on that, and we have the best plan for public safety. And once I became the mayor, you're gonna see boots on the ground. You're gonna see police walking in our neighborhood, building a relationship with those business owners, with the community, with faith-based organization. That's what you want to see. Police officer walking around our commercial corridor. The amount of business that are being robbed in the city of Paterson, it's just incredible. 2 days ago, they went into Banana King. They robbed Banana King at gunpoint. I believe it was yesterday. But the mayor doesn't care that. Our business owner, they're struggling. In the past, you used to walk into any business, the door used to be open, not anymore. You have to press the button and they will open the door because they doing business afraid and they doing business scared. But this mayor, once again, he doesn't care. He's being weak on public safety, and that's the reason why we have the highest crime rate in the history of the city of Paterson. And it was on the news. I don't say that. Just look at the news, get on the record. And Paterson is one of the 100 cities, most dangerous city in the nation, and the third in the state of New Jersey. It's time for change. It's time to take this corrupted mayor out of office this May 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Gile, this question is from Steve Lennox of Tappan to Paterson. COVID-19 showed just how important it is for residents in a community like Paterson to be kept informed. This comes at the same time when many media outlets are moving away from delivering local news while other focus more on getting clicks than providing reliable content. Most of you have deftly turned to social media to get your messages out, but even this has limitations as your posts understandably present issues from only your perspective. Do you believe there is a role elected officials like yourself and your counterparts at other levels can play in ensuring a vibrant news ecosystem in Paterson?
I'm really not sure what the question was. I heard you, but
Well, let me see if I can.
let's do it in Morris terms.
Huh?
Try to do it in Morris terms.
Let me see if I can break it down. Steve's question, and I see Councilman Jackson is chomping at the bit to answer it also.
And who is that? Steve who?
Steve Lennox from
Okay.
Tappan to Paterson. So basically what he's saying is that many elected officials take advantage of social media to put their ideas out there for the public consumption. But his position is that it only presents one side, and that's usually the side of the person that's putting it out there. The follow-up to that is that do you believe as an elected official that you can play a role to ensure that the right information gets out there to the public in an unbiased way?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And that would be the responsibility of our health officer. The mayor's job is probably, if anything, to communicate what he's getting from his professionals. The professionals here did advise our mayor to move forward and to put a testing site in place much earlier, but yet he refused. He took it upon himself not to take that action. Then there was some dispute with the county. Paterson is the third largest city in the state of New Jersey. We need all hands on deck. County, city, state, everybody from the beginning to the end should have been involved. And you know what? I was not a big fan of social media, but the truth is, if you're not in social media, you're really not in tune with everybody. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is on social media, but for example, we have this alert system that's through our fire department, through Office of Emergency Management, that our mayor has been using to campaign on. Now, he used it also to communicate other things that might be happening, whether a storm was coming or whether there was a minor disaster, because I haven't seen any major disaster in Paterson other than the leadership of this mayor. But we need to have more responsibility, more accountability, and you know, we have the resources and we have our municipal channels, and I don't know why nobody is utilizing this. You know, he's quick to respond and he's quick to be in the, you know, on the camera on Channel 12 doing ribbon cutting ceremonies, the one park 3-4 times even, same park over and over, and this is part of the abuse. And that's why what happened now with this alert system, sending these robocalls, is abuse. So instead of using it for the purpose it was meant to be, he's taken advantage of this, and he's, you know, being the sole person that has the resources, or because of his position as mayor, access. Now, my understanding is that comes through the fire department, okay? If the fire department is giving him access, then the fire department should give it to us. This is not his fire department. This is the city of Paterson. This belongs to the citizens of Paterson. And if that's what he wants to do, if that's how he's going to conduct himself, you know, somebody needs to step up, somebody needs to say something. But I'm hoping at the end of this, either if there's nothing wrong with what he's been doing as far as him trying to get that message across, I know I would use every single resource, social media, this emergency responding thing for the robocalls, being here present, doing what we're doing now to get our message out. And we should have a relationship with some of our top local radio stations. So there's a host of things that can be done to get that message out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Jackson, this question comes from Joe Malaconico of the Paterson Press. You've been highly critical of the Democratic Party leaders in Passaic County and New Jersey. If elected, would you seek their help in getting county and state funding for Paterson?
Thank you, Councilman Morris. I'll try to encapsulate and answer some of the previous questions as well, because I think they kind of align. And I have been extremely critical of the Democratic Party, and part of the reason is because most of the members of our public, our residents, are firm supporters of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has been in power for several decades, and it's because of the fact that Paterson residents, which carries the largest voting population throughout the county, has been extremely supportive. For that matter, I've been extremely critical because I don't feel as if the services and the reciprocation of appreciation has been met. And that's part of the reason why I've been extremely critical. I think that there's a responsibility to our community to make sure that we don't carry the burden for other communities. We wore the grunt of homelessness, of crime. When you look at the number of county buildings that's off the tax rolls in our community, the amount of traffic that impacts our roads, impacts our city, it's extremely heavy. So not only will I implore the county representatives to continue to support Paterson, but to support Paterson further. I think there's an obligation there, and I will, in deference of this current administration, not only implore them, but I will fight on our behalf to advocate for more support. I think there's a necessity of more support, and we're not getting it. And to elaborate a little further, where I think the importance of our accessibility to media, it's been proven. I've called numerous outlets. Recently, I filed a suit against a 101-unit development that's going on South Paterson in his former ward. And I called newspaper outlets to try to bring that information to the forefront. And I was told that it's not a worthy story. Yet, the mayor could find a cat in a tree and he can have 5 media outlets there. I called various news outlets. We've met with Ms. Copenhagen from Channel 4, and she also refuses to do that story. So the reason that council members have sought to pursue social media outlets is because there's been a gross level of one-sidedness with the media, and it's been controlled not only by this mayor, but his supporters and his relationships, not only through the Democratic Party in the Passaic County, but also throughout the state. So it's vital. It's vitally important that we utilize every measure possible to bring forward a sound level of transparency. We should all be encouraging the media to do stories on all the things that impact our communities and not just look to do one-sided stories. So I hope that answers both questions.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Velez, it is now your opportunity to ask the candidates a series of questions.
Thank you, former councilman and still my friend, Ken Morris. You know, we've been here since 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'm curious, and I just wrote texting myself here back and forth because today's my birthday, so everybody's like texting me. But Councilman Gow, this question is for you. You was the one that stated about your residency situation that, and you invited the press into your house. I was real impressed. And you stated that you live in your same house in a guest room. But you was caught in West Milford, and you stated that you was taking care of the lawn or the garbage of your wife. That's normal on you, that your wife live in one section, you live in the other? Or you really live in West Milford and just use your evidence, the address, just to keep it to run for election, but you really live in West Milford? Or you planning to move back to Paterson when if you win. I think you haven't been too transparent in regarding the address thing. And if you know that most of them don't like to lie, so can you tell me a little bit why the contradiction of the house situation over there that you say that you went to do some work on your wife's house and the situation that you live in a guest room? If it's your house, I guess you're not going to live in a guest room. Can you explain that? I just did. Can you explain that? It's your statement. I'm not saying any other statement. It's your statement that you gave. Can you explain your statement?
That was your statement. So-
That's what
So you
saved
had
the
your
article.
opportunity to ask your silly question, and the mayor stated before that he did not want to ask his colleagues a question because we were all in cahoots and we might lie. We just saw who was in cahoots, and we now see who the liars are. So, Luis Velez, I live in Paterson, New Jersey.
Councilman Velez.
Excuse me, Luis Velez, I live in Paterson, New Jersey. I have lived here all my life, okay? Whether I spent 2 weeks at one location or 6 months at another location, that did not prove that I am not a resident of Paterson. You're starting to sound as foolish as the investigators that they hired to prove that I didn't live here. Well, we went to court based on the evidence of the private investigators. And as you know, Louis, that's what I do for a living. They had no evidence whatsoever to discredit me. But now you're doing the same thing to keep that perception in the public. It's not going to work, Louis. Everybody knows me. That's why I invited the press to my house. I wanted them to see. I could have 5 houses, Louis, and I could stay at each and every single one of them. But that didn't determine whether I was a Paterson resident or a West Milford resident. What determined that was everything I own and have is in Paterson, New Jersey, and always has been, and will continue to be. And as far as my personal relationship with my wife, it's not your business, and I don't have to answer that to you. How I live is my life. I don't know how you live, but I know you live in the home of a developer. I know that you claim you pay $700 a month, but nobody pays $700 a month in the city of Paterson anymore, okay? So you're living in a developer's home. You're the only person this developer has not targeted. And everybody sees the truth now, Louis. They see who's in cahoots with who. Nothing has changed. While you played a better game in the public this time, you have not fooled the people one single bit. The people of Paterson are not deceived. The people of Paterson know who Luis Velez is, but I don't want to be the bearer of the bad news. But Luis, before you start talking about me, perfect example, yesterday somebody who might have looked a little like me had a little dispute with someone. And it was something that was so trivial and silly, but they contacted you to say, hey, that was Gao. And the truth was, it wasn't Gao. And you went over there like a fool to run and see if you could get something. So you're talking about where I live, you should talk about where you live and in whose home you live in.
So first of all,
Thank you, Councilman Velez. Do you wish to ask a follow-up question of former Councilman Gao, or move on to another?
no, I want to do a follow-up question. Of course, Mr. Gao always trying to Hitler attitude, always come here, and everybody knows that when things don't go his way, he always try to disinform the community. I didn't say it, and I didn't have no doubts of your residency. If you look at my question, it says, can you clarify your statement regarding what you was trying to justify your residency? So read the newspaper and that you quoted yourself. So the next question is, you brag about your police expertise and academy or police experience. If you brag a lot about public safety as your tenure as councilman, and listen, if I want to support Andrew Saya, I don't run. And then he wins. I'm running because I have different aspects to see things in this city. You've been disappearing out of the city for the longest, but can you explain to me how come you love so much public safety, and when you was council president, you didn't do nothing to avoid 125 police officers? Because that's the one question. That was under your leadership at council. I was sitting on the other side, and you thought to choose to attack the brothers that they came here to request answered from you. Can you elaborate why you didn't plan to hold those 125 police officers in the city of Paterson?
I wish, Louis, you could have done better tonight. You're very confused. When I was the council president, the previous administration, Joey Torres, had lost the election. Prior to that, he put on 125 police officers. I was a councilman then. It wasn't until after Joey lost the election to Jeffrey Jones, I became the council president. He was the newly elected mayor. The municipal council does not appoint police officers or hire police officers. We ratify contracts, we ratify ordinances, and so on. The mayor, with his good intention, and the public opinion was we needed more cops. I told him we didn't have the money for the funding, but in the end, we didn't want to look like we were not supportive of police or the safety of the city. So the municipal council voted in favor of it. I even voted in favor of it, but we didn't have the funds. The following year, or that year, when Jones took over, the money was not there and he laid them off. It was not the responsibility of the municipal council to override or usurp the mayor's authority to put the cops on. So Jeffrey Jones did absolutely nothing. That was an administrative responsibility, Councilman. You should know that. But in lieu of that, what happened? Our mayor got elected, Andre Saya, and the same issue was at hand, public safety. The only thing he did was he replaced police officers that retired and or left our city to go hire for other municipalities. And you just saw not too long ago, our chief of police, our present chief of police, celebrating police officers, our police officers who we trained in another community. So you want to sit here and you want to play your little game, Louis. You don't have the maturity or the qualifications to be a mayor in the city of Paterson. What you're doing is you're aiding what's in place. You're playing a game with the public. Everybody sees the streets in your ward, how filthy they are, Louis, beyond imagination. But then you're running around, shaking down all the businesses, telling them that you're going to do things, and you promise, you actually say you're restricted from what you could do as a councilman. Can you imagine what I could do as a mayor? Louis, you couldn't do it then, and you won't be able to do it now. Thank you for your question.
Councilman Velez, you now have an opportunity to ask a question of the other candidates.
2016, I got elected, re-elected in 2020. If you look at the fifth ward was 2016, it's a big difference that you see now. It's the most safe ward, clean ward, and I invite you to sit in my table and eat together tonight. So this question goes to Councilman Mendez. Mr. Councilman Mendez, you're my colleague, okay, and I respect a lot your opinion, and sometimes I disagree. And that's normal in government. You could agree and disagree. I will not fall in the hatred campaign or fall into, because we all have family. Our kids are watching. But I will go with some statement that you have made. And I'm going to try to elaborate my question in these three topics. Do you have special treatment do you have, if you eliminate developers from the city of Paterson, where you could identify funding for the infrastructure of the private sector in the city of Paterson? How are you going to do that? And because you want to eliminate everything. You want to eliminate abatement, you want to eliminate developers. I just want to know, if all the developers decide to leave Paterson, nobody want to come and invest in the city because there's no opportunity for them, and it's the law. The law says that you have the right to give 5, 10, 15, 20, tax break. If you, as the mayor, eliminate what you said, developer abatement, how are you going to do it to move forward the city of Paterson?
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Mendez?
Sure. I would like to respond to the question of the candidate, and yes, I'm trying to be as independent as I am, and I've always been. I try to be straightforward with it, and when I became the mayor of the city of Paterson, God willing, in this May 10, and we take position on July 1st, what we're going to stop is the corruption that this mayor has in the city. He had one person buy the entire city of Paterson, giving out 20 and 30-year tax abatement as of right, which is a lie. There's not everybody getting 20-year tax abatement, but he's doing that with his friend, only with his people. And that's the reason why he's been selling the city. But at the same time, you have our Patersonia that cannot afford to pay $2,000 for 2-bedroom apartment with not enough parking, with not playground, with nothing. What are we doing? We're building projects in different areas. But with that being said, what I'm planning to do is I'm planning to do an assessment and an analysis of the city. We have to be mindful that every school in the city of Paterson is way overcrowded already. For example, School 18, the capacity is for 860 students, some more or less. The amount of students that we have is around 1,200 students. So we're building apartments, and we're not taking in consideration the problem that we have with the school system, that all of them are overcrowded, with the sewer is a system that is becoming a humongous problem. We have that problem here. We have to be mindful that when it comes to development, you need to have a plan. This administration, this mayor, doesn't have a plan. Building apartment, it's not development. This redevelopment in terms of property, but that's overdevelopment. That's not the plan that I want to have as a mayor. I want to concentrate into bringing more company. Not like we say, oh, we bring Amazon, which is a bunch of lies, because you never see that coming into fruition. What I'm planning to do is I'm planning to put all the energy into company to come into the city and make sure that everybody pay a portion of the taxes. I do real estate, ladies and gentlemen. I put a house for sale on East 22nd, and the price was $700,000. The offer was $680,000 cash. There's no tax abatement on the property. There's a lot of money in real estate. The market is hot right now. There's no need for us to give tax abatement to every developer in order for them to build in the city of Paterson and to make money in the city of Paterson. That's my plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Velez, you now have an opportunity to ask a follow-up question to Councilman Mendez or move on to another candidate.
I don't have no more other questions. I'm surprised at the answers. Trust me. No substance. Thank you, Councilman Morris.
Thank you, Councilman Velez. Given the councilman has no other questions, I will pose questions from the press for those candidates who did not have an opportunity to respond to the councilman's questions. I'll begin with Councilman Jackson. Councilman Jackson, this question comes from Joe Meliconico of the Paterson Press. You often talk about the need to have Paterson residents in the cabinet. Who are some of the people you would consider appointing to your administration?
So one of the things I want to point out to the residents of Paterson is the fact that Paterson is a city that's endowed with great talents. I think that this administration, along with previous administrations, has shown through their actions their lack of confidence in many of the residents that reside here. You know, I won't outline at this time my entire cabinet, but I think that it's important that we can point out some of the failures that has happened where we have shown such a lack of confidence or a lack of trust in our own people. One of those examples is a former zoning officer that we allowed to be overlooked, overshadowed, and we brought an outside person to come in, which was a complete failure. Another one that I would like to point out, another one that's going to cost the city a great deal of money, is the community improvement director. This person showed his professionalism, his ability to do the job, his concern and care for the city, and because he cared for the city so much, where he held everyone equally accountable, this administration decided to illegally terminate this person, which in turn is going to cost you, the residents, money. There's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit on the table that is going to cost us. This gentleman proven that he has the best ability for the community. His numbers showed it prior to this mayor taking office and even during the first part of his tenure here. So my plan is to definitely bring him back in a more leadership role. When you look at the $700,000 in uncollected fees that took place within the Division of Community Improvement, the building department. That's another department that needs reorganizing. The gentleman that's there now shows he has a lack of concern for the public. And when people blatantly break the law with all of the illegal construction, illegal conversions, this administration has failed the public in making sure that we hold people accountable. So my plan would definitely be to have better representation there. Our economic development director, he's totally sold the city, and that will be one of the first positions that I will be looking to refill and make sure that we bring someone in with more experience, but more importantly, with the concern for what's best for our residents, not for what's best for special interest groups in the community. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor said this question is also from Joe Melanconico from the Paterson Press. Why do you think tourism at the Great Falls will solve the problems of Paterson's 1st, 4th, and 5th wards?
I've always said that the Great Falls possesses untapped potential. First, as far as job creation is concerned, last year we hired about 204 people. Of those 204, 191 of those individuals are Paterson residents. So we prioritize hiring Patersonians in my administration, and we prioritize hiring Patersonians for projects at the Great Falls. We have the Alexander Hamilton Visitor Center that has been proposed. Last year, according to the National Park Service, there were 300,000 visitors in Paterson at the Great Falls. We build this visitor center, there'll be 1 million tourists coming in to the city of Paterson. That's what our expectation is. But I also want to point out, it'll create a multiplier effect, because once the visitor center is there, restaurants, retail entities, other outlets, souvenir stores, you'll see a ripple effect, and it'll create job opportunities, akin to what has happened in other areas like Jersey City, Hoboken, Weehawken, and let's use Newark as an example with the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. I've been there often. I see how many people from Newark are employed there. And based on our track record, last year 90% of our hires were Paterson residents. We'll prioritize hiring Paterson residents as we develop the Great Falls, making it a top-notch tourist attraction in our city, and bringing in more people and bringing in more revenue. Because as it stands now, people do visit the falls, and what they do is they take pictures, get back in their car, don't spend any money, let alone time, here in the city of Paterson. We have to incentivize, monetize the Great Falls, which has never happened, but it possesses so much potential. And my vision is to make sure we have that visitor center, and then we will have restaurants, retail, other types of outlets to create job opportunities and generate tax revenue for the city of Paterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're now going to move into closing remarks by the various candidates. Before we do that, once again, I want to remind everyone we do have early voting in the city of Paterson for the May 10th municipal elections. This in-person early voting on voting machines is available to all registered voters and will be conducted at the Paterson Fire Department at 300 McBride Avenue in Paterson, as well as the Islamic Center of Passaic County at 152 Durham Avenue in Paterson. The hours for Friday and Saturday are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and on Sunday, the hours will be 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Early voting will start on Friday, May 6th, and will end on Sunday, May 8th. So for those of you who want to take advantage of early voting, I do encourage you to do so. Now we will have closing remarks in the reverse order in which we did the opening remarks, starting with Councilman Luis Velez, the People's Time, Tiempo del Pueblo, ballot position 3A. Councilman?
Thank you, Ken Morris. Thank you for that.
Louis, before you start, if I may, what is the time, closing time? 2 minutes?
It says in the paper.
Councilman Velez?
Wow. That's the way they do it to distract my message, but the message is still going to go forward. Ladies and gentlemen, last week I went to an interview, and quickly this minister told me, don't let hate change your heart. Don't let evil change your heart. Don't let personal agendas of others change your heart. Have you heard today here is hate, personal agendas, and evil. And that's not going to change the way I am. Everybody knows how successful councilman I'm being in the Fifth Ward. The resident says it. Those that do not agree probably is because they have visited the Fifth Ward when only campaigning. And that's understandable. But ladies and gentlemen, it's your time. It's the people's time. If you are comfortable with the mayor that you see here, Mayor Andresea, go ahead or vote for him. The results is out there. Newspaper article have testified on it. I don't have to elaborate and mention it every time in every speech like a broken record that have you seen today. You have experience and you know what you want for your city. If you want honest, integrity administration and a person that have no hate, no evil, and do not have a personal agenda, it's your time to vote for the people, your family, your kids, your family, your taxes, your safety is on May 10, voting 3A. Damas y caballeros, cuando esta semana me hicieron una entrevista, me dijeron que odio la agenda personal de la gente y otras cosas no cambiaron mi corazón. Yo soy un concejal, he hecho mi trabajo y lo voy a seguir haciendo hasta que usted me elija a mí como su alcalde en mayo 10. Lo que usted ha visto hoy ha sido odio, ha sido ataques personales, pero ni nada de concepto para echar a esta ciudad hacia adelante. Vote 3A, Luis Vélez.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Next, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver their closing remarks will be Mayor Andre Sayer, the leader we still need, ballot position 1A. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilman Morris. I've always believed in the power of partnerships because no man or woman can ever achieve anything alone. And throughout this trying and very traumatic time, let's put this into perspective, we've lost lives, people have gotten seriously ill, and mental health has risen to the forefront on one of the challenges we are looking to address. But despite all that, our goals were to finally get a complete count or a fairly accurate count in the census. And we did. We mobilized our community despite the fact that we couldn't meet, but we found ways. And that's what we do. Real leadership will find people that we can motivate and inspire to make sure that we achieve our objective. And as a result, now we are New Jersey's newest first-class city, which will position us in the future for more funding from the federal government to build new schools and improve our infrastructure. And it's been noted that I have been endorsed by Governor Phil Murphy, who's made several announcements in Paterson to support us with public safety initiatives. And yes, I've been endorsed by Senator Bob Menendez and Senator Cory Booker, because they've been able to bring CARES Act money to Paterson so that we can devote $3.8 million of that money to our school system so that they can safely open for our children and the staff members there. And that's why one of the reasons I've been endorsed by the Paterson Education Association. But two endorsements stand out. One is Jane Williams Warren, my predecessor, who is the epitome of honesty and integrity. During this pandemic, she made lists of senior citizens that we needed to get vaccinated. And as a result of her heroic efforts, we were able to vaccinate those senior citizens at a time when they needed it the most. And another endorsement that really stands out is that of former business administrator Eli Burgos. He's my deputy mayor of Commerce. And his professional approach to government, his knowledge of how this works, the system works, has helped us attract investment. And so ask yourselves the question. We need tested and trusted leadership. And that's what's been demonstrated, especially during this once-in-a-century crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next to deliver their closing comments will be Councilman Alex Mendez. Let's change for our city together. Ballot position 5A.
Thank you, Councilman. It's been a great honor to have you as a moderator in this forum. Paterson, it's time for change. By electing Alex Mendez on line 5A as your mayor. We all know the condition of the city. We all know that this administration failed big in providing services that you as a taxpayer are paying, and as a person that is renting also as well, because a portion of your money go into the taxes. He failed to save, to protect the city. Look at the crime in the city of Paterson, the high crime rate in the history of the city of Paterson. And he haven't done nothing to stop it. He never had a plan for public safety. You will see my plan for public safety coming up, and it's gonna be on your door very soon. I have Troy Oswald, former police chief, advising me, and we put this plan together to put books on the ground. On the Alex Mendez administration, you're gonna see police officers walking around our community, establishing a relationship with the community, with business owner, with faith-based organization to bring safety into the community. This administration, they've been reacting. Unfortunately, when you call the police, they might take 2-3 hours to come. On the Alex Mendez administration, police response is gonna be applause. You will see a police officer immediately in your door. Why? Because under my plan on public safety, I'm planning to open 6 different substations, not like the mayor opened his substation in South Paterson. I'm ready to open 1 substation on each ward to make sure that we control and fix the police response problem that we have in the city of Paterson. We have to bring safety into our community. If the city is not safe, if you don't feel safe, we're not gonna be able to move the city forward. Recreation, I have the most aggressive plan in terms of recreation. If we don't create jobs for our youth and we don't open the recreation department for our community, we're not gonna bring the crime down in the city. We have to give job opportunity to our residents, and that's what I'm planning to do as a mayor. I will make sure that every developer that comes into the city of Paterson increase the amount of job between 30 and 40% of the amount of people that they're gonna hire. So once again, I'm Alex Mendez, 5A on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next to deliver their closing remarks is Councilman Michael Jackson. Vote or die. Ballot position 4A.
Thank you, Councilman Morris. Vote or die is extremely relevant. We are being strangled. So it's vote for life. It is we deserve better. The evidence is here. You've heard a lot go on tonight, but what you have not heard is one person here, including the mayor, including members of the press, challenge me on one space where I was wrong or on my record as an elected person. The mayor talked about following Newark's footsteps and creating a performing arts center. We had an opportunity to create a performing arts center that would encapsulate 12,000 people. with a brand name hotel, Marriott Hotel. The mayor passed up that opportunity. He gave money away to developers and gave precious land away to developers, 17 acres of land. He's proven to be a failure. The garbage in this community is totally out of control. We continue to overpay this garbage company. I'm talking about bringing services back home. I'm the only person that's presented a plan that talks about how we will pay for these things. The money is here. We're misappropriating it. I talked about countless times where we overpaid for services. The garbage contraption across from Wendy's, $7 million, $2.5 million in a change order, where professionals were paid for a service that they did not provide. We never challenged that. The communication center on Pennsylvania Avenue, we overpaid for that. Money that's being squandered. People, what's happening here is an embezzlement. We are losing by allowing people with no qualifications and poor leadership qualities to represent us. I was quick. Mike Jackson, row 4A, the only representative of that you'll have here before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Jackson. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver his closing remarks, former Councilman Aslan Gao, for the people, by the people, ballot position 2A. Councilman?
Thank you, Councilman Morris, Sonia Gordon, our municipal clerk, Jackie, assistant clerk. You've heard tonight the whole panel. You heard our mayor. I've answered every question, and I've answered it honestly and truthfully. We know what the state of the city is. Some people don't want to be reminded, but the facts are very, very important. Your taxes, your crime, your sewer fees, the filth, the violence, it's a host of things. There's $800 million of development that the mayor's talking about. It's development, not redevelopment. Has not benefited the city one single bit. Has not employed a single contractor. The streets are so filthy, now they're reverting to hiring a private contractor and giving him an opportunity to make some money because he's neglected that very community of folks that he has presently employed. That's no secret to anybody, and everybody seems to know that. Everybody knows that when I was a councilman, I was fiscally responsible. I made sure the people were represented equally and fairly across the board. You've heard the mayor actually make a comment about a 29% increase under my tenure, which is absolutely false. It's actually been printed in the paper, and it was a previous councilman. The point I'm making is that he will actually sit here and lie. This is why we are where we are. I've never seen somebody be so vindictive and make people so afraid. Now we're hiring cops, now we're giving out citations, now we're having luncheons. If the people can't see through that, I don't know what to tell you, because a blind man can see what's going on in Paterson. What I'm gonna bring to you is that, very simply, we're gonna have accountability, you're gonna have real leadership, and you're gonna have a visible mayor in this city. So while contrary to what some people might wanna say about an article and what I said, they don't repeat it because there's no truth to it. So what I'm sharing to you is we need to move forward. We cannot continue to stay backward. You had 4 years of Andre Sayed. He has not delivered. He made it about him. He campaigned on the state level so he could be visible, so he could run for Congress. I'm Aslan Gao Sr., 2A, born and raised in the city of Paterson. Please give me a chance. You supported Joey, Jeffrey, and Andre that all came from this municipal council. Now give me a chance and let me show you that we can move the city forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman Gao. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our hopes that you found this forum informative. I once again would like to thank the Paterson Municipal Council for sponsoring this mayoral candidates forum. The choice is now yours. I also would like to remind you on May 4th, we'll be conducting the Council at Large Candidates Forum beginning at 12 noon with Jace Abreu, Melissa Barat, Gilman Chowdhury, Council President Maritza Davila, and Sonia Diaz. And at 2 p.m., we will be conducting the forum with Farad Udan, Juan Mitch Santiago, Casey Melvin, Mark Fisher, and Councilwoman Lilisa Mims. We hope you join us. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. And as I said, the choice is now yours. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.